loving the days gone by epilogue, crying voice, for long, for much too long, this expanse teemed with silence. Everything beyond its time became poison, encompassing even silence. Silence, resounding as a cacophony to ears, was deadly toxic, birthed by stagnation eating into the human heart. Moreover, it steadily, mercilessly, and without pardon, ate into even the heart of one not human. Within the tempestuous silence, faintly reverberated the timbre of grazing paper. Atop her petite lap, turning the pages of a voluminous book, her eyes dimly illumine with a fleeting luminescence, chased the letters in pursuit. Only the notes of this reprise jolted the air of the library reigned by silence, the forbidden archive. For too long had this forevermore subsisted, when long eyelashes laced with her eyelids quivered, her blue eyes were elevated lento. Parting her gaze from the book, her sight focused ahead onto the room's gateway in a long time. Her focus about concurred with the door unfastening with a creak. Beatrice. A visitor in a long time, in fact. Roswell, too, quite the obstinate chap, I suppose. Leaking a languorous, enervated whisper, the proprietor of the room, no, the librarian entrusted with this room by its proprietor, received the first visitor to arrive at the forbidden archive after a span of 10 years with a jellied voice. In days long bygone, she used to await someone's call. However, her duty had since changed. The librarian's role was to await the visit of the awaited one. And a long time had since elapsed, bearing witness to no visit by the awaited one. During this time, a few had succeeded in reaching this forbidden archive, but they all were inapposite to be the awaited one. The same certainly went for this gray-haired grandsire, Beatrice. So, what did you come here searching for, in fact? A means to heal all kinds of illnesses, art of conversation to amplify your fortune and fame, or truths concealed in history, I suppose. No matter what it is, stranger. Beatrice. What? Interposing in the midst of her speech, she failed to grasp the grandsire's scant words. The librarian thus asked again, and the grandsire, taking a step toward her, pierced her with his blue eyes unabating of radiance. The librarian took an instant and furrowed her brows, gulping a faint inhale. For the possessor of those eyes was stranger. I have come to repay my debt to you. Beatrice Jan. Beatrice. Tosca, the librarian whose name was stated, Beatrice, dazed, called the tottering grandsire, the posture of his back bent. This could not be, she thought. However, no refute was evinced by the grandsire as he loosened his cheeks into a wry smile like once before. During that journey, which lasted shorter than 10 days, this was the expression he used to display the most. Beatrice. I am possible, in fact. After all, it's been more than 100 years since. Tosca. Yes, that's correct. This year marks the 150th. Beatrice, you've lived for way too long, I suppose. Be befitting of a human, you should have celebrated your short life, and... Words escaping her, Beatrice was astounded by her own faltering speech. By merely this alone, she had surpassed the number of words she had spoken in the past however many years. But that was the scale of her astonishment. No, her astonishment was illimitable. What did he say just now? Beatrice. Repay debt? What in the world does that? Tosca. I heard you have remained here alone for long, spending your time in far more solitude than a bit prior to 100 years ago. By a human scale, a calculation error of 30 years is not a bit. She failed to vocalize even this interjection. The aged, tottering grandsire lapped with naught of the youth in Beatrice's recollection, save for his eyes. However, she was astounded by the certitude alone that his eyes had not changed. Beatrice. 100 years is not a short period, I suppose. Tosca. Of course. I also went through a lot. I had children with Romina, who in turn had their own children, who then also had their own children. Living for long is not something that can be overdone. I did not imagine I would live longer than my great-grandchildren. But, then severing his words, Tosca took another step, walking up to Beatrice. Tosca. Thanks to that, I made it in time for today. Beatrice Jan, won't you please leave this place? Beatrice. That's... Tosca, this place is far too lonesome for you to live in by yourself, all alone. Beatrice's heart was staggeringly swayed, witnessing the wrinkled hand offered before her. She had deemed her heart as frozen. having decayed the frailty to be swayed due to the stagnation that prevailed for long, but that had been fallacious. Herself was frail, brittle, akin to leaves swaying in nonchalant wind. Beatrice. Be Betty will, whispering, Beatrice reached not for the offered hand but below her hip. By the footing of the sitting stepladder was a single book veiled by her skirt. Hauling it out in dismay, she ousted the book atop her lap for it and spread it open. Spreading it wide open, frantically attempting to pursue the words that shall hereinafter be inscribed. Before the blank-paged book void of anything ever recorded therein, Beatrice closed her eyes. Tosca. Beatrice Jan. Beatrice. I cannot take your hand, no, I will not, in fact. I will not, I suppose. Juddering her head, Beatrice rejected Tosca's hand, senescent over a century. Upon hearing so, Tosca widened his eyes. However, his focus immediately rebounded with a Y, identically valorously as the day he had gripped the sword before the dragon. This gallantry of the hero, unchanging despite the elapse of a prolonged period since, seemed dazzling to her. Beatrice. Betty was entrusted this archive by Mother, in fact. This is an exceedingly important, profoundly significant task, I suppose. Betty can never do something as to abandon it, in fact. Tosca, but it's already been over 100 years. Time until someone made children, those children had children, and even their children died. During all this time, you were all alone. Beatrice. This is Betty's mission, I suppose. Betty's meaning for being born, in fact. Taking another step ahead, Tosca attempted to get close to her so that he could reach her hand. Beatrice halted him, with a hand other than the one the book was set atop. His aged legs paused as though his path was weaved closed, and instead upsurged a wind. Wind to drive away any parties that threatened the peace of the archive, as the librarian that guarded the forbidden archive. Beatrice, return, I suppose, Tosca. Live your last moments surrounded by your children and grandchildren, in fact. Tosca. Beatrice Jan. Beatrice. Thank you for remembering, I suppose. This suffices as your repayment of the debt. Placing a hand other than the one outstretched onto her chest, Beatrice smiled. Many people apprised her that she was not honest. Everyone saw through Beatrice's sighs, but this time alone did she wish to lie convincingly. In her life of about 140 years, for the first time, Beatrice wished to be a genius at lying. Expelled out of the room, the aged Tosca straggled on the hallway, gazing up to the ceiling. A building precisely identical to the palace of the witch he had once seen. However, time had passed, things differed from back then. His self had changed, the world had changed, anything and everything had changed. Tosca. Yet you haven't changed at all since then. His eyes moistening from vexation, the grandsire clenched the overlong thirst of his cheeks with tears. How long had it been since he had cried like this? Never could he forget. He had previously cried when he heard of his elder brother's demise. The man who cried not even when he bid farewell to his wife, his children, his grandchildren, now let fall tears. He could not reach. His self was insufficient. Was he too late, or was he too early? Purely his self had not been the one. He could not become her kind self's awaited one. Tosca. Someone, anyone. No, the one who was utmost kind in the entire world. Someone, please save that kind-hearted girl. Please bury the solitude she had lived. If this is the palace of the witch reconstructed, and if she is the proxy of the witch, I shall wish until my heart scorches. Tosca. Someone please save her, she is my savior. At the end of his life, the grandsire wept. Wishing for her happiness, he kept crying. He kept on crying. Stranger. No good, huh? The silhouette watching the grandsire shed tears from the corner of the hallway sighed so. One glance at his state was enough to discern his failure. Having hoped that if it's him, then he might be able to take the girl out of the forbidden archive, but it all fell in vain. Stranger. Reminiscences dating prior to 130 years ago. Me, I'd have been too slender a thread to rely on. Knocking the temple of his forehead with a finger, he recalled the olden, faraway, distant days. Having swapped bodies thrice now, hence had increased memories he could no longer recollect. However, those days in the sanctuary shan't grow dim. Never could he forget either his emotions or his regrets. However, that was his personal circumstance. He could not possibly let her get involved within, he believed. Stranger, but Beatrice, you will also uphold your promise with teacher, yes. The black books left by the witch to the two of daughter and pupil, that book which indicated its owner's future, was the solitary possibility for him, and befittingly his guide to a demonic conclusion. In order to realize his purpose, it was necessary for him to renounce being human. Therefore, his self renounced being human, and initiated deeds with the resignation of falling into the pits of hell. However, at least before that, he wished to keep solely one person, solely her away in safety, but stranger. Not everything goes well, isn't it, teacher? At least, the future that shall fittingly arrive, those final moments, for her to welcome them with full contentment, I pray. The witch who continued to grant the wishes of people, her pupil enunciated a prayer. Upon the fair cheeks to offer this prayer, his wish trickled down in the shape of a singular warm droplet. The grandsire who tied together an old bond, and a kindred soul who relinquished his body to the clownery of fate, shed tears. Unbeknownst of such happenings beyond the doors closed, Beatrice slowly lowered her hand. The book atop her knees was an unchanging white, indicating naught of her future. Beatrice. But one day for sure, one day for certain, one day for absolute, will arrive the time letters shall be scrawled upon these blank white pages. They whom her mother told her to await shall arrive seeking the knowledge of the archive entrusted to her by her mother, before the spirit whose mission was to devote her all for her mother. Beatrice. Mother Bubby, Juice, Tosca, Roswal, Luz. Amidst the days she lived for long, she whispered the names possessing magnitude within her heart. Ache constricted her chest upon the whisper of a single name, hugging the girthy black book into the same chest. The girl cast her gaze down. Someone cool would be nice. Knowledgeable, well-educated, elegant in conduct. A master in all kinds of martial arts upon wielding a sword, someone who rumbled heaven and earth upon using magic. It'd be nice if a superhuman like that were to be they. And if that was overambitious, then. Beatrice, I'd be happy if it were to be someone kind, in fact. One day, if there were to be someone who opened these doors and took her hand, then she wished for it to be someone kind. Whilst wishing so, Beatrice faintly wailed and cried all to herself. The end.